It was July 1st, 1776 in Philadelphia. John Adams was up with the early morning light, jotting off a note to a friend in Georgia. This morning is assigned to the greatest debate of all. A declaration that these colonies are free and independent states has been reported. This day is to determine its fate. A few weeks earlier, Richard Henry Lee had made a motion on the floor of Congress that the colonies declare themselves independent of England. Adams had seconded the motion, but the majority were hostile to it. The decision was postponed till the 1st of July. Many would have liked to postpone it forever. John was born in Braintree, Massachusetts in 1735. At age 15, he entered Harvard College, later becoming a schoolmaster. He taught for 2 years, then decided to pursue law, even though he had intended all along to enter the ministry. Along with his cousin, Sam Adams, John had a strong Calvinistic background and believed that resistance to tyranny was supported by Scripture. In taking up the revolutionary cause, John had burned his bridges behind him. He closed his office in Boston, losing all of his income as a successful attorney. Then he traveled to Philadelphia, leaving his wife and children in enemy-occupied territory, living on short rations on their farm in Braintree. Often he was troubled with deep anxieties. Yet we shall succeed at our struggle. I will see it out, or go to heaven in its ruins. Back in England, King George was annoyed and repulsed by the American petitions. He told Lord North, "Blows must decide whether they are to be subject to this country or independent. They shall be taught a bitter lesson. They'll be whipped and flogged into obedience, all of them, the base, disloyal, ungrateful multitudes of the New World." The colonists were afraid. If they were too rash, they could lose everything, including their lives. The moderates in Pennsylvania, led by prominent Quaker lawyer John Dickinson, were ready to break away from the violent men of New England and Virginia. Dickinson had always held that the disputes between the colonies and the mother country could be better resolved by the patient exercise of reason rather than violence. In the coming debate, Adams knows that Dickinson will use every weapon in his arsenal to defeat the declaration. He himself is equally determined to drive it through. As far as the gentlemen attending the convention, more than half had been trained at law, and the majority of these studied in England. Advocates of law and order, they consider themselves solicitors for justice, not fly-by-night rebels or conspirators. A year ago, the majority had no thought of breaking away from the mother country. As the morning wore on, the heat mounted, and the delegates were becoming more uncomfortable. The room was heavy with tobacco smoke. In the front row, just below the speaker's table, John Adams sat in an armchair, girding himself for the battle. Dickinson had started his dissertation. Outside, the weather had suddenly changed. The summer storm, which had been brewing behind the mounting heat, threatened to break. The afternoon was rapidly darkening. "I say, let us wait," said Dickinson firmly. "Let us wait for an answer from France as to their assistance." His exclamation was underlined by a rumbling burst of thunder. A large candelabra was lit and placed on the speaker's table. Dickinson went on eloquently for hours, it seemed, unfolding his objections to the declaration. "I say the time is not yet ripe for proclaiming it. It will bring us disaster. I say we ought to hold back any declaration and remain masters of our fate and fame. I say we should keep Great Britain believing that we mean reconciliation. That whole nation is armed against us. The wealth of the empire is poured into her treasury. We shall weep at our folly." While Dickinson was summing up his points, John Adams pursued his private reflections. Outwardly calm, he sits in his armchair like a resolute field marshal, his mind seething with 1,000 problems, anxieties, and irritations, trying to maintain his composure. John was regarded as highly as Jefferson for his scholarship, but he lacked tact and diplomacy, and he often spoke in ways which earned him enemies rather than friends. Right now, it was all he could do to keep from verbally assailing John Dickinson. When Dickinson returned to his seat, the gentlemen looked at one another speculatively. They glanced at John Adams. Someone must answer the speaker in forceful terms. Dr. Franklin never took part in public debates, nor did Jefferson. Roger Sherman felt unequal to the occasion. Samuel Adams was too agitated to say anything sensible. It was up to John. He sat without moving. He could feel the eyes fixed on him. He knew the gentlemen expected him to perform. For the first time in his life, John Adams wished he had the gift of eloquence, so he could rouse the hesitant delegates in Philadelphia, lift them out of their seats, and make them catch a glimpse of the promised land. He had no talent for oratory. He could only speak his thoughts in his own blunt way. Then Rutledge of South Carolina stepped up to him unexpectedly. "You're the one who has all the arguments, Mr. Adams. We're waiting." Adams shrugged, then got up on his feet and faced the assembly. Raising his voice above the rumble of the storm, he took the offensive.
"Gentlemen, we have all heard the admonitions of Mr. Dickinson, and I'm sure you'll agree his delivery to be quite eloquent and persuasive, especially to the timid. I do understand his concerns. However, I do not hold his opinions. In fact, his recommendations are beyond my scope of reasoning. I have not eloquence, as you well know, and I've been known to offend even my friends at times. I shall not disappoint you now, for I must speak freely and directly in this hour of decision. We have all heard the arguments against our king many times before. We've labored over those grievances in and out of this assembly. It's known to us that His Majesty, King George III, has precipitated actions totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. A prince whose character is so marked by acts which define him as a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Indulge me one last time as I read from just part of a list of his offenses. He has refused to assent to laws we've requested for the public good. When we impose his invasions on the rights of the people, he shuts down our meeting houses. He has blocked the immigration of foreign peoples to our land. He has obstructed the administration of justice. He controls the judges. He has erected a multitude of new offices in our towns and has sent swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He keeps his armies among us in times of peace and without our consent. He has made the military independent and superior to the civil power. He gives special treatment to his armed troops and protects them from punishment when they murder our civilians. He has cut off our trade from all parts of the world. He imposes taxes on us and without our consent. He deprives us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. He even makes us stand trial in England on pretended charges. He destroys our businesses and he alters our forms of government. He has waged war on us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny. He has even forced our fellow citizens, when they're taken captive, to fight against their friends and brethren. And if they refuse, they are forced to kill themselves. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the humblest of terms. Our repeated petitions have only been met by repeated injury. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. If we unite now and declare to the world the reasons which impel us to independence, we will win allies in the struggle, and we will be respected by nations. By declaring independence, it will unify the country. It will unify the people, and that is most critical. The people need to be united, for a house divided against itself will surely fall. The people are ready to resist the oppressor. They are tired of the injustice, and they are ready to fight. The people are more at arms than many of you here in this room. They are ready to join their brothers and risk their lives to support this Declaration of Independence. If we do not take up arms now, we will be forever subjected to slavery. It will be a curse to posterity, and we will be at the mercy of tyrants forever. Have you heard the talk on the roads? Have you listened to the voices in the taverns and meeting places? Have you felt the righteous fervor of the swell of the crowd in the marketplace? The people want to be free. Gentlemen, at this moment, the King's armies are killing our brothers in the South, and those Southern patriots are defending gloriously against overwhelming odds. In Boston, the people have held off an invasion. They have pushed back the aggressor with little more than tomahawks and muskets. I salute these men of courage. We owe them our gratitude and support. If we do not stand together, what will the people do? I believe they will continue to stand alone, one by one, protecting their families and their homes to the very last. And their blood will be on our hands, because we refuse the vote of confidence that can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Our friend and General George Washington is at this very moment preparing for the battle of his life in New York, while the fleets of the adversary cover the waters like the stars in the sky. Never before in the history of man has such an army been deployed. And gentlemen, we are the enemy. How blind can we be? How much longer can we deny the reality of the truth before us? We can, with our unity, provide that intangible weapon of hope. Hope that we can defeat the enemy. Hope that we can be a free and independent people. Hope that we will not go to the scaffold. Hope that our children will live in the light and liberty of freedom and pass that inheritance to the generations to come. The people need our decision. The people need our strength. They need our unity. And they need it now. For myself, I can only say this. I have crossed the Rubicon. All that I have, all that I am, all that I hope for in this life, I stake on our cause. For me, the die is cast. Sink or swim, live or die, to survive or perish with my country. That is my unalterable resolution. This is the hour of decision. Let us declare independence. Remember, we are not fighting to put men into slavery. We are fighting to set men free. God bless America. Let freedom ring.